Tervetuloa Ustavani. Welcome back to Finnish Firearms and History and another episode of Finnish Photo Fridays. As always, I'm your host, Matt Derizio, author of Finnish Maasenagant, Three-Line Rifle to Ukkopekka, the first comprehensive English language book on Finnish firearms. This week, we're going to take a look at a few images from the twilight of the Continuation War. In these photos, which were taken at Syskyjärvi, which coincidentally translates as Twilight Lake. I honestly did not realize that until I wrote the script. On August 30th, 1944, we can see a Finnish lieutenant examining an M3943 Ajack sniper rifle, looking down the sights, and even detaching the Ajack scope and mount. It's going to be a series of 3 photos. Usually I only do 1 photo on this, but they're all related and they're in the same few minute span most likely. So we're going to go ahead and roll through all 3. And we take a look at the first photo and we've got some Finns. It looks like they're washing a catch of fish in the river, possibly cleaning something. Didn't get that good of a look at it. But what I thought was interesting was looking in the background. And sure enough, I'm looking and I say, hey, that looks like a sniper rifle. And I zoom in, and I can tell that that's an M3943 Ajax sniper rifle. And as I zoom out, there's some kind of bunkers in the background, and naturally I'm on Asevarikko looking through the Finnish National Archives, and I'm like, okay, I better check the next photo in this series of photos and see what we can find in that one. So when we take a look at the next photograph, we can see that it's a Finnish lieutenant. The Finnish Army has 3 versions of lieutenants. You have Vanrikki, Lieutenanti, and Yli-Lieutenanti. This is a Lieutenanti, roughly equivalent to a first lieutenant in U.S. Army parlance. And we can see that he's messing around with the elevation settings on the Ajax scope. The Ajax has elevation, but it doesn't have windage adjustments built into it. We can see that the scope has the focusing ring on it. An undetermined number of the Ajax scopes lacked focusing rings that got sent to the Finns. We move up the rifle. We can also see this guy in the background. He's got a bunch of cool stuff on his strap across his chest. We can see it's an M39 ersatz sling right there. It's canvas, and then moving up higher, typical M39 wartime stock. Of course, it's a wartime stock. Why wouldn't it be, right? We're in August of 1944. The elevation side of things on the M39 haven't been messed with, and unfortunately, the picture is not good enough that we can see what the barrel is, but most likely it's a VKT. Only a handful of sockos were made into M3943s. Now, taking a look at the last picture in the series, we can see that the Finnish lieutenant has taken off the mount and the attached scope off the rifle, and that's how the Ajax detaches. There's a lever on the right side of it. Once you loosen the tightening ring on the mount, you push the lever. I can show that in my video later on how that works, and that helps take the scope off of it. And really nothing else of consequence in this one. It's just not often that you're able to find a picture of a M3943, an SOV, or a PH close-up in any of the Finnish pictures like this, let alone a soldier examining it and then taking the scope off in a series of photos. So I just thought the 3 pictures were really neat that way, and hopefully the viewers out there did as well. Getting into the background of the M3943 in Finnish service, during the Continuation War, it became clear that the Physica scope, the PH, was not going to be the best scope going forward. Big surprise, its meager production was never going to satisfy the Finnish Army's needs. And unfortunately, the Finnish Army couldn't capture enough Russian optics to keep making SOVs forever, which were reliant on Russian PE and PEM scopes. So facing a lack of domestic options and a lack of captured options, the Finns had to turn to their co-belligerent Germany, and they ordered 2,000 Ajax 4x38 scopes from the German firm of Jack and Roll in December of 1942. However, just a few months later, in March 43, the Germans said 9 and informed the Finns that their entire rifle scope production was needed for the Wehrmacht, and the Finnish order was canceled. And the unreliable nature of the Ajax scope acquisition caused a little bit of friction with Germany. Finally, in the summer of 1943, the German High Command granted permission for the Finnish military to purchase a limited number of scopes. And the Germans would deliver 500 Ajax scopes in 4 batches during the winter in 1943 to 1944. And the Finns lost a lot of valuable time during this prolonged acquisition period, although they pursued the development of a mount and a base for the rifle. And they did this by experimenting with Swedish M41 snipers. And if you look at the two mounts and bases, they're fairly similar. What the Finns ended up coming up with for the M39 variant with the Ajack, which is the M3943. Although the scopes that the Germans ended up delivering were not all identical. Some were delivered with focus rings, and some were delivered without focus adjustment rings. AV1, Asevarikko 1, maintained responsibility for the manufacture of the bases and mounts and the installation of the Ajax scopes. And unfortunately, the Finns only assembled about 300 of them before the end of the Continuation War in September of 1944. And despite this, the M3943 was the best of the sniper rifle variants used by the Finnish Army in World War II. It's better than the Physica, it was better than the SOV, and it was definitely better than any of the pre-war experimental variants. However, the design did suffer from a general weakness in its base and scope mount setup. AV1 fabricated these parts from lower quality steel due to raw material shortages in World War II, and they were somewhat susceptible to damage and wear. As a result, after the war, you'll find that the Finns rebuilt M3943s. The example I have appears to have been rebuilt numerous times. And in 1951, the post-war Finnish Defense Forces held approximately 298 of these rifles in service, with 137 in use with frontline troops, 45 with the border guard, and the rest in long-term storage. And eventually they would sell off some of them to collectors later on in the 1980s, and some of them stayed in storage up until the 21st century and were only sold off a few years ago. And we'll get into that more in our deep dive on the M3943 video, but this is a good primer for now. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and look forward to seeing all of you in the next one.